podcast from Joanna Mike is, I think it's really cool, and that is what I wanted to say.
Two and a mic. Here, Vlad and I continue our debates on the governance of our islands. As today's episode is quite long, I shall not introduce it in the normal manner. Suffice to say that Vlad provides us with some wonderful insight, which varies somewhat from my own, and for that reason it makes it of particular interest for me, and I hope you find it interesting too. Thank you, Vlad, for your time, and I hope the rest of you enjoy our debate. I'm joined by a very good friend of mine, Vlad, who I haven't seen in ages. Vlad, how are you, man?
I'm doing great. Very happy to be here again. And I'm also missing you. At the moment, I'm in Colombia visiting my family. And yeah, but very much looking forward to seeing you again once I'm back in Berlin.
Yeah, man, proper bromance stuff going on here. It's been ages. I can't even remember the last time we actually met, which is tragic. But yeah, hopefully then the next opportunity is not too far away. Yeah, how is it now in Colombia? It must be great over there.
It's great, but also very hot. Like, yeah, you know how is the weather here. So I'm in the north of the country, close to the Caribbean Sea. And yeah, it's beautiful, but it's from time to time too hot for yeah, I'm used to Germany now since I've been living there for 16 years. But yeah, I always enjoy, family time. It's always nice to see my mom, my aunt, yeah, and the rest of the family, some old friends. So yeah, I can't complain.
And you're working from Colombia, I guess, as well, right?
No, now I'm having finally some time off, so I'm enjoying really like the whole time with my family. And okay, from time to time I have to work, but maybe some hours per day, not the way I'm used to work.
Okay. All right. And how does it feel? Because I mean, that is the epitome of remote working, isn't it?
Yeah, but yeah, to be honest, I feel a bit weird when I'm not working because I'm used to work, yeah, quite a lot. But then I have time to read, yeah, like books that I was trying to read for a month, and they were just like in my room waiting to be written, and yeah, so just enjoying the time.
Yeah. People who don't know you can't appreciate exactly how much of a workaholic you are, because basically you are. Yeah, you won't admit it, but you are. And yeah, so you are used to working with startups, and startups require innovation, flexibility, lots of wonderful things, and blood. And maybe some of them even your soul, I think. But you've given a lot of blood to the startups that you've worked with. Are you currently with a startup now?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so they'll be happy to hear my comments on this. It was me, yeah, not you. So if anybody's gonna say something, come to me.
No, I enjoy it. It's like I love the pace that you have while working for startups. Like everything is something new, and you have really like the I would say like the power to change something, to have an impact within the company and so on. And I know there is this is not for free, and for sure you have to work quite a lot. But I prefer that compared to work like for a huge corporation where you just I don't know, like if you want to change something, then you have to wait for the approval of 10 people that are above you. And I don't know. I prefer to have a yeah a bit more of control.
Okay, all right. So you'd rather be like, what would I say, like yeah, vice captain, as it were, on a yacht, than so some third-rate manager on I don't know, a cruise liner, for example. Something
Yes,
like this. Yeah.
yes.
Okay. All right. I don't know where that simile came from, but anyway. Okay, cool. So yeah, I'm hopeful then that when you return to Berlin, that you'll find some time for me outside of the dynamic energy that is your job at the startup.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. This is something as I said, I'm very much looking forward to meeting you and have these nice conversations that we are used to have in the past. Yeah.
Yep. Something to look forward to. And you mentioned conversations of the past, so I'm sure there'll be some people who listen to this and haven't got a clue what we're talking about. So we sort of, first of all, we had a podcast on democracy and whether or not it's a good idea, or something like that. And then we kind of, the idea evolved that we would then create a series on political governance and systems and principles. And basically the idea was that you would have an island, I would have an island, and we would each sort of create a new system for governing each of these islands. And then whichever of the sort of principles that we both agreed with were, okay, that would work for me and it works for you and so on, then we would take those ideas and put them onto a third island, as a kind of sort of mixture between the two systems. So this is purely theoretical, what we are talking about. People also have to understand that I've studied politics and history at university to the level of I've got a Bachelor of Science. You've studied it to the level of Masters, so therefore far further developed in your political analysis than I am. But we both sort of maintained ever since we left university a very a broad-based interest in politics, political issues, so in many ways sort of studying political developments and international relations as they happen. And we perhaps base a lot of our thoughts and opinions on these events, but also our everyday life. Would you say that's probably a fair assessment of where we are?
Yes, but I wouldn't agree with you that my analytical thinking is superior compared to yours. I think that's exactly the opposite case, but thanks for the words and the compliments.
Well, that's how I see it. But anyway, it doesn't matter. It's cool. It's clear that we both respect the other, and I wouldn't have it any other way. So that's fantastic. Yeah. So also to highlight, so because previously the two sessions that we had, you were operating from a place where you were not at home at the time, and so what we did was then had two of my points introduced in a row, and so therefore we decided it's fair finally to come back to analyzing one of your points, and yeah, this is a real treat because it's a slightly controversial topic, but definitely one which needs to be had, all things considered. So I'm sure the way that you're going to introduce it and the title, and some people say, "Wow, what's he talking about?" Blah blah blah. But actually, hear him out. Let's get into the details of it, and see what comes up. So please, Vlad, the ball is in your court.
Okay, thank you. So, vasectomy, as well as all other contraceptive methods, will be for free on the island. And we will recommend people who wish to have children to go through a series of preparatory courses, including some kind of assessments, to show whether it might be better not to do so. But I also want to be very clear that no one will be banned from having children. So at the end, you always will have the last word and the completely power to decide if you want to have children.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay. And also very important to point out what you said was also, and you identified the fact that this is very important. There is no elitist influence within the decision-making process. Do you want to clarify that point as well?
Yeah, sure. So this is very important. So here is not about like show me your bank account and I will decide if you have enough money to afford a kid, because we talk already about it. So education will be for free in the island, all the access to the health system and so on. So it will never be a decision about how much money do you have in your bank account. It's more about the other stuff. So maybe I use the point to connect it with the next point. I think that having children is maybe the biggest decision you can have, or you can be like confronted within your life. And I consider that if the state or some independent agency that is for sure receiving funds from the state can help you to analyze when it's better to have children or not, or maybe when it's better, maybe if you can wait for 1 year or 2 years. I think this is a help that will only help, to say the yeah in some way.
Yeah, and I think also in light of recent events in the USA, so for example, the Supreme Court's reversal of Roe versus Wade, there is a religious argument within the general context of what you're saying. However, I don't feel that I am in any way qualified to put the argument across on the basis of this religious discourse. So from my side, I think it's a topic that should be discussed, because I think religion plays an extremely important part in society and culture. However, none of our conversation here, from my side at least, I mean, Vlad, you're free to introduce any point you wish, but from my side, I'm not going to bring in a religious, shall we say, contradiction to your concept here. But I am going to sort of challenge it in a few sort of ways, and we'll basically get have that discussion developed from there on. Is that fair? Or I mean, if you want to talk, sure. Yeah, I mean, if you want to say something religious, go for it, man. It's not for me.
It plays in no role.
Okay. All right. Cool. So obviously, I had no doubt whatsoever that your concept here would be based upon a fair process. And so therefore, if somebody were, and this is also hypothetical, but if somebody were to suggest to a couple, we don't think you should have children, that wouldn't be on the basis of money, nor would this suggestion be less likely to occur to a couple who had lots and lots of money. So I know, because I know you, I'm sure that this element of elitism is not in any way involved in the decision-making process. Can you take us through a little bit what is involved in the decision-making process?
Yeah, sure. So also very important to highlight before I start with giving some examples. It's all about a recommendation, right? So this is also very important. Like nobody's gonna tell you it's gonna be, imagine like nowadays, like a good friend tell you, hey, don't do it. But now it would be like a more qualified, let's say, recommendation or opinion. And we are not talking about income. We are talking here about, I would say, first of all, how psychological prepare are you to take that decision? How emotional stable are you at that moment? I can give you some examples that you may know from friends or stories or history. You cannot imagine how many people just take that decision based on, I don't know, like I'm about to lose my wife, or I'm about to lose my husband, so I want to get pregnant, or I want my wife to get pregnant to be sure that we continue being together. And I think this is a very egoistic way to make that decision, that always ends, not always, but very often ends in a not very nice childhood for the kid that is coming, right? Because actually you are not thinking about the fact that should be very obvious, but for some reason it isn't, that we are talking about giving birth to a life with feelings, with problems, with probably health issues, with it's nothing that it's going to disappear in some month. It's not like a vacation or a holidays that you are planning. We are talking here about a life that it, at least for 16, 18, maybe a bit longer, years, it's going to be with you, and that you are going to be responsible for that life. So I just want to be sure that people knows that. And yeah, like the argument that I always use for many things that I propose is like in our world, when we forget our island, you need almost for everything that appears to be important, a license, a permission, to go through an assessment. Like if you want to drive a car, you need to go through a course that it's not the easiest one, then to go to do a test, and then at some point, some entity of the state tell you, okay, you are allowed to drive a car. The same thing if you want to be an engineer. If you want to, it's not like, okay, let's build a bridge. You have to go to college, to university for some years, and then you need to gain some working experience, and then at some point you are going to be able to build a bridge, just to give some example. And the last one about medical doctors, it's not like that you say, hey, Vladi, I'm feeling bad, and I'm come to you, and okay, let's here see what I can do for you. It's like you go to see a doctor, and if you want to be a doctor, you have in Germany, it's very difficult to become a doctor. Not to say that they are all like the smartest people in the world, but like you have to have like the best marks during school. Then you have to go for med school like for 6 years. Then you have to go to do your specialization for other 3-4 years. And I always ask me, okay, but I think like the responsibility of giving birth is, in my eyes, the biggest responsibilities you can have. And I only want to be sure that you know what you are doing. So it's just to let you know maybe things that for you are obvious, but yeah, talking again about democracy, that's not that obvious. And and yeah, so basically it's more about how sure you are, just like to challenge you. Okay, why do you have to have children? And do you have any, let's say, it could be very, I could share with you two personal stories about me. Let's start with the first one, and then I'm very happy about your comments. But you know that I have one of my that I cannot see with one of my eyes because of I got sick. I got a cancer as I was 2, and there is a chance that if I have children, that they can get exactly the same thing or even worse, right? So for me, it was very, very like obvious that I will go to the doctor, because nowadays it's possible, and ask them, hey, what if I would have children? Are they gonna be maybe blind, right? And in Germany, for example, the whole test and the whole exams were for free. And at the end, I was lucky, and they say, hey, no, you can have children without any concerns. They are gonna be completely healthy, right? But I know that someone like me, but I would love to encourage everybody to do that. And I'm not talking about like something like a Nazi methodology that we only want like the best people to come to the world, but it's just like I'm pretty sure that I know it because I think I'm educated, so I know that something like this exists, and I know that something like this, it's affordable and I can do it. But I want to inform the people that, for example, if they want to know it, that they can do it, because I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people that they don't know that they can do all these kind of exams. And I'm not saying that every single person has to go through such an exam, but in my case, that I have like my past, that I know, okay, there is a high risk that if I have a kid, it's going to be blind, then for me should be, and if I don't know it, I would be very thankful if someone come to me and say, hey, actually, if you want, you can test it, and it's for free.
Yeah, I mean, just quickly to jump in here. This is, I'm sure that there would be people who listen to this and say that maybe there is an element of ableism in that particular concept. So, to say that blind people don't necessarily have something to contribute and so on, that's not what we're saying, or that's not at all anywhere near what we are saying. But what you are actually saying is that children who are born, and the term would be with special needs. Not every parent or not every family is suitably equipped to deal with the necessary demands upon a child who does indeed have special needs, special requirements, special treatment, special consideration. And if indeed you've got a family situation which in itself is already under pressure for a number of different reasons, I mean, life throws all sorts of shit at us, right? If that situation is going to lead to suffering for the child that is born with special needs, for the other children perhaps that exist already within the family, and indeed for the whole sort of family makeup in itself, then there should be some kind of consideration made for that process, either for special assistance to be then organized for the family, or perhaps a different kind of solution where the child would be given a more fixed abode, which is better to manage it. I imagine that's the kind of solution that we are perhaps considering here.
Yeah, and also very important to highlight, we are not talking here about abortion. We are not talking here about like giving the right to someone to have child just if the kid that is coming seems seems to be very healthy. We are talking here that I would offer you that chance to go through this program whenever you want, right? It's not like you are coming and ask for permission. It was actually not part of my idea, but now like improving, that's the nice thing about like exchanging those ideas with you, that you always challenge me and I try to improve my own ideas. It's something like that maybe we can put it during high school, for example, right? That we are not talking about any religious topics. We're not talking about anything like this, but just like informing the people. The same thing, like like as my parents went to school, they didn't have any kind of sexual education, right? And then as I went to school, and now a bit more intense, it's like when during school you have some kind of sexual education where you learn how to protect yourself so you don't get any kind of illnesses, or how to prevent from having unexpected children. And in my eyes, this is awesome that our children, like the generations nowadays, that they can receive this kind of sexual education. Also that they know that, for example, like discriminating gay people is something that it's a totally no-go. Like we have to accept everybody in all the many diverse let's say types of life that we have. Like if you are gay, it's fine. If you are lesbian, it's fine. If you are asexual, it's fine. If you are heterosexual, it's fine. So we are not saying here that we are recommending people like to be gay. That was like the conversation maybe 20 years ago here in Colombia, or not even 10 years ago, where they started like, okay, let's start talking about gay people even in primary school, so that the kids, they learn that this is normal, right? That the same way you can have like your aunt and your uncle, there is a chance that you can have an uncle who is married to a guy, to a husband, and this is fine, and then they are not like crazy. And I'm trying to say exactly the same thing, because at the end, sexual education is about sex, and sex is about giving birth at some point. So that's the way we use to reproduce ourselves. So I'm taking this topic to a next level, where I'm educating people to let them know that having a child is not just like having sex for 15 minutes and then waiting 9 months. It's like the real problem, or the real challenge, or the beautiful thing is coming after this 9 months, where maybe you are not in love anymore, where maybe you are not, able to do the things that you were planning. And I just want to allow the people to be informed, that they know what actually implies to have a child, and they don't have to be they don't have to take care about education, anything, because on the island this is going to be for free, like high quality education, high quality health systems. But I want the people to be informed, that they know what they are doing.
Okay. But also you're inherently suggesting that after 9 months or 9.5 months, or whatever the period actually is, that a child will be born, because 25% of pregnancies end in miscarriage, where the child is unfortunately lost. And we also have to indeed recognize the huge sort of physiological change that takes place for the mother while developing the child in her womb. And so therefore, again, I can't put myself as being somebody who is particularly knowledgeable in the in this particular area. I have two sons, so I've seen the process develop, and I've seen other people have children. I know that there are lots and lots of issues, and for every woman it's different.
Yeah.
But in itself, the process of pregnancy and developing the fetus into a full child, a healthy child at the end of it, is not very easy, is basically what I'm trying to say. So that should also be perhaps a part of the educational process. People should know what they're getting into, as it were.
Yeah, and one of the points that I or we may forgot, I'm also talking about having free access to contraceptive methods, and I don't think that's a bad idea. I mean, I don't want people to get pregnant just because they didn't have the I don't know the money to pay for contraceptive methods. And as you say, like every woman is different, and unfortunately, like really unfortunately, I don't know the name, but above 90% of all contraceptive methods are designed or were designed for women. So what we can do, it's very less. So here it's very important that we know, and then I know the audience know that as well, that not every single contraceptive methods work in a very good way for every single woman. So from time to time, they have to choose from A, B, or C, and maybe the one they need is one that is real expensive. And I don't want this woman to suffer because it's like taking some kind of pills that it's bad for her. I don't know, immune system health or whatever. I want really that if you want and you have the decision to do a birth prevention, that you have access to exactly the one method you need. And I will also encourage all these pharmaceutical companies and so on to invest more in contraceptive methods for men, so we don't let the women like be the only responsible for birth control. So this is also a part of my point. And yeah, and I think this is a topic that maybe we forgot. Like from time to time, we talk about it, that we know, but this is something that we need to change. And as a man, I would love to have more control. And nowadays, it's like the yeah, more or less the only option that I have are like a vasectomy or condoms. And I would be the happiest guy on earth if I would also have the possibility to take some pills or to do something yeah, with my body that it's yeah, like having exactly the same possibilities as women, so I can also take control yeah, over it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a very fair point. And in fact, we always, when we talk about gender equality, sex, or the process of sex, or having children, again, this patriarchal society that we have, it kind of raises its head here, because the way that the system is exactly as you say, it's heavily directed towards women having to bear the burden of responsibility for contraception or not. And yeah, this is grossly unfair. And also because when a child is born out of, shall we say, wedlock, which happens much more than it did 50, 60 years ago, people still stigmatized the woman in this sense, and said, look at that, she didn't take care, she should have known better, and so on, completely ignoring the fact that she probably didn't do this on her own. So I think you're very right, at least in this particular instance as well, that men should take a far greater responsibility for contraception.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, this is
Yeah.
very crazy, and I know this is a very controversial, let's say, topic. And there is no, from time to time, I'm having some discussions, or let's say nice chats with friends, or even with my girlfriend. And yeah, and I'm really from time to time like suffering would be too tough, but but I would love to have more control, right?
Mm.
Because the thing is that imagine I'm with my with a girl, right? And she's telling me, yeah, I'm taking the pill, right?
Yep.
And then for some reason she decides not to take it anymore without letting me know, right? And then she got pregnant. In that exactly moment, I lost control because
Mm.
all the legislation, and it's normal, I'm not going to change it. But then it's only her decision if she wants to give birth or not. And for sure, it's her body, so I'm not trying to change it. But then I'm losing completely control, right? It's like someone that just wanted to like not to lose me for any, I don't know, reason, play with me, and now I'm gonna give birth to a kid that actually I didn't want it, and I thought that I was controlling it, that I was like preventing it, right? So I'm not trying to blame anyone. I'm not trying to blame the girl or anything. The only thing that I'm wanting is to have the possibility to also have my own control.
Yep, no, that's understandable. I think I've also heard the people, women and other genders advocate a similar kind of point with regards to it's a person's right to decide whether or not they want to have children, and that right should also fall to any participant within the process. So I think that should also cover the man in this sense too. It's an interesting point though, because as you sort of started out, you referred to, psychological preparedness and emotional readiness, and that's something that we can talk about further. But you also suggested that maybe I've seen it too, in relationships, in families where the parents are not really having a good time. They're going through a sort of period of not understanding one another. They can't really communicate properly. There's always stress. There's always friction. There's always argument. And then it seems as though a sort of pacifying concept is like, oh well, let's have a baby. And as you
Right.
said, if in itself the foundations of a relationship are not really strong, the worst thing to do would be to add another floor onto the building, um, because those unsteady foundations are not going to necessarily solidify. Um, I mean, please tell me what it's like with Colombian culture. But for example, our Armenian culture, we have this saying that a child brings luck, a child brings good fortune. And I don't mean this financially necessarily. Do you have a similar principle in Colombian culture?
Unfortunately, yes. It's like,
Oh, you do?
yeah. They call it, yeah. They say that they are not having a child. They are having a bendición. No,
Like a benediction. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
they call it, yeah. And when they ask, say, yeah, how are your kids? They are like, hey, how are your benedictions? Yeah.
So that's very much pro children, isn't it? Isn't that? And that's a cultural thing. Yeah. I don't know this necessarily from the UK, but it's interesting that these cultures have similar principles. But you think that's wrong, right? That culture.
No, well, it's very complicated because for sure we have to understand the two different worlds that we have. Like when we talk about countries like Colombia or Armenia compared to countries like UK or Germany. I was trying to not even analyze, but trying to understand why people are perceiving children as a benediction or something like it's good for you. And I came to the conclusion that life here is too hard. And from time to time, you really need like a reason to go on, to continue like struggling, to continue working. You need just a reason. And this reason could be or must be very, very strong. So the first one normally is something related to religion. Like, I don't know, you believe in a God, and that's the reason why you wake up every day to trying to be a good person. But at some point, I think that's not enough, even for the most religious people in the world. And I think the feeling that you have while raising a child, while raising your own kids, is so strong that even within the biggest, let's say, or the worst period of your life, you want something good for this kid, because this is like a part of you. And that's, I think that the people here, they really see their own children as the main fuel that they have to continue struggling. Because I do believe here that here a lot of people, they are not really living, they are surviving, they are struggling, because they don't have they don't have the same opportunities that they would have in some other parts of the globe. So I think that that's the reason why they think that a kid is something like a fortune or a benediction. I don't know if you get my point, but
No, I do get your point. What I'm also thinking about is in itself this term benediction, or I think blessing, is perhaps a more universally used term in English.
yeah,
The problem that I have with the word blessing or benediction in this case is that what if things don't necessarily go to plan? What if, because if the child is not born, healthily and in the way that the parents would have dreamed about it personally, then what I find is there's such a polarity and there's such a binary polarity in the way that people see the world. If something isn't a blessing, it's then a curse. And as we sort of discussed before, that is an extremely unfair position to take with regards to a life that has been created. And it also suggests a lack of understanding of society, that they would simply consider a child born that is different to be a curse.
yeah, sure. I mean, this is a you remember me one of those like huge contradictions when we are talking about birth control in terms of or taking into account all these religious arguments that they are all against abortion and so on. So all the discussion, I mean the church and so on, they would like to ban abortion. But if the kid come to the world as a gay person, then they want to kill them.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah, well, this was the traditional, I suppose, policy going back some years, I imagine, of the church. And
yeah, 500 years,
yeah,
but now they still consider that they. But yeah, I got your point about this thing between a blessing and being more like a curse. So it's I don't know. I think this thing with the seeing a kid as a blessing and seeing also, I don't know how it's in Armenia, but here I do believe that relationships within families could be or tend to be very toxic, because there is like a very high pressure that family is the most important thing in life, and you have to love your parents and you have to love your kids and you have to love everyone within your family, in this regard if they are good people or not. And this is something that in Germany, for example, is very different. The first time I saw it, I was thinking like, okay, these German guys are really weird, because I went to a university like 15 years ago, and I was like talking to my like first friends in university, and as a normal thing, because they say, no, I don't know, I'm from Frankfurt, and I was studying in Dresden, right? And I asked them, okay, how often are you visiting your family, or how often are you calling your mom or your dad? And it was, to be honest, some often that they said, look, I don't know, I gave my dad a call every 2 months or something, or
mm,
I visit them only on Christmas time. And I was like, what the hell, like, you can just jump into a train and you are like in 3 hours in Frankfurt, you can see your family. And then I start like asking and asking, and they were like, yeah, but we don't have this like nice relationship. And
yeah,
I was like, at the very beginning, it was really weird for me, because I was coming from Colombia, a country where like family is the most important thing, to be honest, in a very toxic way, because then you have like a father who is maybe not a good one, who's maybe alcoholic, who is maybe like punching your mom in the face every time he's coming drunk from home. But then on the next day, you have to show society that you have the best dad in the world. And that's very
mm,
toxic.
yeah,
So I really think that all those things also explain why in countries like Armenia and Colombia, like kids are seen as a blessing, and you always have like this respect within the family, even if it shouldn't be the case. I mean, in terms that okay, if your dad is not good to you, then you don't need him. I mean, at some point, I'm not talking that you're gonna left home as when you are 4, 3. And I also recognize the difference, because it's very easy to do it between Germany and all this, like welfare state, where it's fine. You can't say goodbye to your father because you don't not need him, or to your mom because you don't need her to afford university, right? But in Colombia, it's like you are dependent, maybe not 100%, but 80% of your parents, right? There is not a state that it's gonna feed you. There is not a state that's gonna educate you, and that's why all these, toxic relationships are happening.
Yeah, I mean, if you because the Armenian diaspora, which is what I'm more familiar with, really does take on the characteristics of the host nation. Yeah, so I was born in the UK, and so therefore I'm far more British, I'm far more European than I could say
Listen.
I am Armenian. However, I have experienced at first hand very traditional Armenian families from either Armenia or other more traditional parts of the world where diasporas have existed for 100 years, if not more. And they do have these very, exactly as you said, these families which are patriarchal, I have to say, exactly in the way that you've described. And also, regardless of the situation that exists within the family, there is no chance that the mother or the wife would leave. They were very much under this impression that whatever happens, you stick with your man. And obviously, that's extremely unhealthy under certain kinds of circumstances, which you kind of alluded to. If you have an abusive partner, then that kind of suffering is just simply inhumane. And luckily, there is this thing that you can see that there is development even in this area, even among traditional Armenian families, where basically partners say, sorry, I'm not going to deal with that. That shit's beyond me. That's not right anymore. But this is a very slow change in these very patriarchal countries where they don't necessarily see genders as being equal. Indeed, in Armenia's case, I believe in Armenia, this concept of non-binary is far from developed. So, there are certain characteristics within certain cultures. They are developing, they are improving, but they're very much, left behind. And so all of this discussion, if we take it from the responsibility of the man to try to, take control of, procreation and so on, contraceptives, that these societies are very, how should I say, they're not very receptive to these kinds of concepts. It's probably the best way of putting it. I mean, if you said to most guys in Colombia, and it's extremely difficult to generalize, how would they respond if you were to suggest to them they should perhaps consider a vasectomy?
Yeah, well,
It's hard to say, isn't it?
but the thing with vasectomy is that I know it's reversible, but it shouldn't be the case. Like if you do it, should be like for like the final decision, and
Yeah.
that's why I'm actually hoping that at some day we can take our own pills. That in the case that we wanted to give birth to a kid at some point, then we can try. Right? That's the thing, that it's a very radical method. Unfortunately, the only one we have to be like a really sure about it. And the things also with vasectomy, at least in Germany, it's like you pay like around 400, 500 euros for the for the, how you call it, for the
Procedure, yeah.
yeah, for the procedure. But in the case that you say, oh, no, I do want to have kids, then it's not 100% sure, but you can try it, and then you have to pay 5,000. So yeah, and also funny wise, I guess I told you already, but I was like taking a look, planning it that maybe I could do it for me, like go through a vasectomy. And it was so crazy that it's nothing that you can do just like because you want it. It's like even in Germany with all these modern cultures and so on, it's like there is a lot of literature that you find, not even literature, but if you go and you put in Google like a vasectomy in Berlin, then you get all the web pages of the doctors that are like offering it, but with a lot of things that why maybe you should not do it. And if you are really sure, and then you have to go for a first appointment where they are going to be like sure that you want to do it, right? So actually what I'm proposing, or what I was proposing at the very beginning of this session, is already happening, but in the opposite direction. And I'm a bit like a, I don't know. I think the world is crazy. If I want to give birth to a new life with all the responsibility that it implies, and nobody cares, it's like I can do it, and that's it. But if I want to take responsibility, if I want really to be a responsible man, because I think okay, that's maybe not a good idea or something, then I have to prove that I'm right. And I don't know. I would love to know your opinion, but for me, this is something like make no sense at all.
So whether or not a person should have to go through a number of different sort of conversations and debates to fully confirm as to whether they want to go through the procedure, is that what you're?
Yeah, but I mean the difference. Like if you want to do this vasectomy, I mean you are being very responsible, and this is not a thing that you're deciding from day A to B. You know, it's not that you are becoming an appointment within 2 days, right? So you still have the time to consider till the appointment is coming, but still then you have to prove that it's a good idea to do it. But on the other hand, when you are like maybe, I don't know, it's like maybe you are abusing drugs, you are doing everything bad, you have no I don't know, like nothing to offer to your kid, but then nobody cares. If you want to have it, have it. And I think these are two things that are, I don't know, in my eyes, it's very difficult to understand.
Yeah, I would actually be interested in listening to a woman who has gone through the process of trying to get an abortion to understand whether or not there is a similar process involved there.
There is a similar process, but I'm not talking about abortion. Are completely different topics because I'm it's like they can I don't know how's the terminology in when women do like the same procedure but for the women. We call it here in a very like a street language, like they get unplugged. So
hysterectomy.
yeah, maybe we can compare it with it, because abortion would be a comparison that we can do, but I don't think that that's going to help with the discussion, because here I'm not like yeah.
Well, I mean, the reason why I brought it up was because it's a form of birth control, and I think that there are some decisions that you can take which are very quickly carried out. Some medical procedures you can request which there isn't this this process to go through. It's not particularly difficult. However, there are barriers put in the way of other kinds of decisions, such as birth control. The reason why I wanted to know was whether or not this is the same kind of barrier that is experienced in both of these cases.
I mean, with abortion, it's even a bit more complicated. So in Germany, in the case, well, you have the limitation up to a certain amount of weeks that you can put without giving apparently any kind of a reason or valid reason, but you have to go through psychological, how do you call it, like psychological, I don't know,
evaluations.
not even evaluation, but it's something like it's going to talk to you and try to understand you. But the
Okay.
problem in Germany is that most of those centers that are allowed to offer this kind of psychological help, they belong to the church. So they have another intention, and they really want to like convince you not to abort. So
Mm.
you go to one of those places because you need like the yeah, kind of document that you have been there. Otherwise, the doctor is not allowed to do the procedure. And you can imagine you go there, and then you are sitting there with normally a woman, and they have a lot of pictures of babies in the whole room and some toys on the floor. So this is not like without any intention, right?
Mm.
Also playing with your feelings, playing with your everything. And then yeah, once you get that document, then you can go to the doctor and do it.
Mm.
But yeah, as said, abortion is something completely different because here I'm not I'm I'm taking the decision alone. There's
Sure.
no second person. There's no a woman in the yeah, in the decision, and there is not a kid coming. So
Yeah.
I'm just actually preventing myself, and to a certain extent a woman to be in that position.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. There is a very clear distinction on that basis. Okay. Let's bring it back a little bit then, because as I said at the top of the episode, we're talking about systems of government for our islands. Why is it that for you, this is an important principle in the management of your island?
It's a very good one. I think I maybe I mentioned that already, but I think this is the biggest decision that we as humans are actually taking, and I think this kind of decisions should be very informed. And I know that we have like very different levels of education, for example, in our current societies, and I just want to bridge that gap, to close that gap, right? I don't want like rich people normally tend to have better access to education, and that's one of the explanations why they at some point are more successful, why they have like a better income, and why they tend to have like a better income at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of decisions, normally they really think about it, and they also like do some kind of assessment in terms of economy, in terms of many things. And I think that's completely unfair. And I want also people that maybe they are not rich, that they are, let's say, poor. I hope in my island we have no poor people. We talked already about it. And but even I know that the education is something that I have to be responsible for as the president or as the founding father of the island, right? So I want to offer every single person on our island to have access also to this kind of information. And maybe taking as an example, I see in Colombia, you see there is always a correlation between the level of education and the number of kids that people are having, right? You always
Yep.
see like people with a high level of education, they normally have one or two kids, and that's it. And you see people with yeah, not that beautiful level of educations are normally also facing some like strong economic challenges. They can have up to 10 kids. And I think they are not having kids just because they think they are good. I think this is lack of information, lack of education. So here, I'm just trying to give them the opportunity to be informed about the consequences of giving birth to a kid.
Yeah, and I think people should also take into consideration now that you are not making a generalized judgment call, but there is statistical research data which compares in many different societies the number of children born to a family and the relevant level of education within those households.
Yeah.
So I believe that's the basis upon which you've made that statement.
Yeah.
It's yeah, I find it thoroughly intriguing. Again, that you and I can, in the many points that we agree upon, when it comes to kind of making or setting up a system of governance for our own islands, that we think along such different lines. I hadn't even mentioned I didn't even thought about it in any way, the possibility of population control within my governance system. And I know that there are lots of theories out there saying that overpopulation is one of the contributing factors to climate change. That's very possibly the case. But I think it's not only that factor. I think the fact that in many societies there are people who eat or consume 10 times as much, sort of, as it were, products that require more CO2 than other places. This is also an element which needs to be considered. But it is a controversial factor or opinion in any kind of society when you talk about a control for the growth of the population. I'm intrigued because, as I said, sort of, before we came online, there's also a privacy issue. There's also a quality of life issue. If we live on islands, and so therefore, naturally these islands have limited space. If there are too many people who live on the island, then at some point the lives of others will infringe upon, of my, for example, space and my ability to enjoy the space that I've set aside for myself privately. And that's something that we would perhaps try to avoid under ideal circumstances. But that's not the only thing. If indeed we continue to populate and grow out of a certain level of control, nature tends to find a way of dealing with these things. And maybe that would lead to extra diseases or viruses that are incurred. There is a natural great burden on healthcare and food supply, so therefore this becomes more problematic. These are things that need to be taken into consideration when you think about developing a society. And this was one aspect I hadn't considered, actually, Vlad.
That's a totally valid point. And I mean, it's maybe already clear, but I would also love to highlight that the whole time I wasn't talking about birth control, because it's like I'm not giving.
But that's what it is, though. I mean, it's still a form of birth control.
When I'm informing people, I'm educating people, and I'm not because birth control is something like you had. I think that's not the case anymore. But in China, you had like a limit of the number of children that you were allowed to have.
Well, now it's 2, yeah.
Okay, and this is some kind of birth control, or if you would say, okay, we have the obligation to take a contraceptive method, but here I'm giving free access, and I just want people to be a bit more educated when it comes to having kids, so that they know, it's like for example, the Catholic Church, they have for sure an interest that people continue getting married within the church, right? But even if you want to do it, you have to go through preparatory courses, and you have to go with your future wife to the church for I don't know how many hours, where they explain you all the values and what it means and all the consequence and what happened if you want to get divorced and so on. And at the end, then you get married. And I mean, they have the interest that people get married. So what they are doing there is not like banning people. So I am proposing something very similar. I'm not saying that people, hey, you should not have kids. The only thing I'm proposing, hey, do it because we need it as a state. It's something that we didn't mention, but we need taxes, and if we need taxes, we need people, right? So also when we talk about the pensions and all this system, we need kids. It's like the only way to survive, right? As a economical system. There are for sure the other implications about overpopulation. And if you want to know, that's the reason actually why I want to go through vasectomy, and that's the reason why I don't want to have kids, because I really consider that's, if not the biggest, one of the top 3 biggest problems in the world right now. But coming back to my point, I wouldn't agree that I'm talking about birth control. I mean, then, because sexual education is not birth control, right? And I'm also not the example that you have heard many times. If I ask people to do a driver's license, this is like even a bigger control, because I'm allowed to say no, you are not allowed to drive, but I don't have any limits of driver license that I can issue every year, at least not in a legal way. I know there are some rumors that they have a limitation, and that's why so many people they don't pass the exam, but this is not official. So yeah, I understand what you say, but being very honest, I'm not talking here about birth control, and that's why that was very important to me, that not compare that with abortion, because I'm not here like qualifying you if you are allowed, right? That if in the case that a woman on the island come to see, I don't know, some committee or something because she's pregnant, then there's no chance, there's no the tiniest chance that I would recommend someone not to give birth. I would just inform, like, okay, that's what's happening. Like a doctor would say, like, hey, look, it's everything cool or not, but I would never ever recommend someone to go through abortion. This is all not because I'm against or because I'm like pro-abortion, is just because I respect, and we already talk about how important it is for me, the person as an individual unit for my island. So I would never go to someone with a recommendation that that is related directly to her or his body. And I know this is like a complicated topic that could be misunderstood, but for me it's very important to have it clear. So it's not about birth control, it's about being educated, to make education accessible in this regard of your income or the type of family you were born in. And I'm not recommending anyone to abort. We are talking about like some steps before.
Sure.
Right?
But sure. But I mean, there is, in nudge theory, for example, where they talk about how you can introduce certain behavioral shifts within a society without creating extra regulations. And this is something that we've seen, for example, on cigarette packets, where you see the effect of smoking on a pair of lungs or on somebody's circulatory system or blood circulation. That kind of, it provokes a certain kind of behavioral shift, or that's the intention. If you educate people with regards to the potential for perhaps overpopulation, then invariably what you're doing is influencing their decision-making process later on down the line. So I know that you're not speaking about in any way prohibiting families from having kids, but you are indirectly discouraging some people of making what they would have seen as a natural, normal decision. You're making them ask themselves, do I really want a child?
Yeah.
And that is, I know you won't accept it, but that is a form of birth control.
Agree to disagree.
Fantastic. Okay, there's no problem. I mean, for me, it's a purely theoretical perspective, but most people would say, screw you, I'm going to have a kid anyway. And that's fair enough. Yeah, nobody should be in any way overly influenced by the opinions of others. However, we should reflect and be very specific on what the results or consequences of our decisions are. And I don't think we do that enough generally. And unfortunately, there are lots and lots of unhappy children out there. And that's something which I'd like for society to be able to avoid, if possible, in the future.
Yeah, that's true. That's
Yeah.
why, I mean, that's not the reason, but that's for me also a chance. Actually, I'm planning to adopt, to adopt yeah, I don't know if one or two kids. It's not for now, but I think in a near future.
That's
And
fantastic. That.
and yeah, that's an idea that I have for years, and it's nothing that like I just took the decision yesterday. So it's for me like, okay, it has been a process about informing myself. Why do I want to do it, and so on. I told you, man, I don't know, but I have been working with children since always, to be honest, on social projects and so on. So I do love children, because from time to time when I explain my ideas, people think that I don't like them, and I love them, and that's one of the reasons. This is actually the yeah, like the pillar, the base of my argument, the love that I have for children, that they are not, they are coming here. I don't know. It's maybe too late now, but the reason why you want to have children should not be because you are in love with a woman. That should be part of it, but that's not the only thing, because you are not gonna raise those kids based on the love that you maybe had someday for a woman, and then at the end it could turn into, you have heard about the term of fish love. So yeah.
I haven't heard of fish love. No, please tell me.
It's like when you are eating like a nice fish, and you say like I love it, and then it's no, you are not loving it. You are loving you, because if you love the fish, you wouldn't have killed them. If you love a fish, you let them swim, and you let them there and you feed them. But if you kill a fish to fry it in a pan and to eat it, then you love the taste. You love the feeling that you are feeling while you are biting the fish. But it would be a lie to say that you love the fish,
Mm.
right? So
Yeah.
that's it's interesting. Here we are not talking about killing anyone, but
I hope not.
no, 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 no. But it's here like if you love children, then you have to be sure that it's not because you are thinking about how beautiful it is to have some pictures with a small baby, and organizing birthdays so people can say to you you are a good father,
Mm.
and all those ideas. It's like you come that you are about to give birth to a human being with feelings, with yeah. I think traumas are unavoidable. So you are also going to transfer some of your traumas to your kid, and it's totally fine. I know I have some of my cause of my parents. I can imagine my parents have some cause of my grandparents. And I know if I have a kid, if it's like my biological one or if adopted, I'm pretty sure I'm going to work not to do it. But at some point, they are going to have a certain kind of bite influence because of traumas that I have from my past, right? But this is something that I have to know, and I have to think about it, and I have to be aware because of it, right? Not that I'm just thinking about how beautiful a baby is and how beautiful it's gonna be the first time we go on holidays, and the first, I don't know, steps and so on. So stop idealizing this idea that having kids is something easy and beautiful and so on, because I mean you are a parent of two. You know how tough it is, and you know that from time to time you can be really desperate.
Mm.
And I talk to many parents where they say, hey, I love my kids. This is the biggest love I can have. But from time to time I have the feeling like asking myself, why did I do that? And this is not because they don't love them anymore. It's just because it's tough, and
Yeah.
it's beautiful, and it's a thing that at the end you really like, you develop the power to convert these like very difficult moments into a even bigger love. But when you are going through this period of time, it's not easy. And this is something that I want you to know before you are putting in that situation, because I don't want anyone to be in that situation, then punching the kids, right? And like doing something shit because they are just like, they have no idea. They have
Mm.
no, like, they are desperate. and they think like treating a kid bad is gonna help. And the only thing that they are showing with it is showing the desperation. And you are again doing something in terms of fish love. Like you are doing something for your desperation, but you are not doing anything for your kid to, I don't know, stop crying or become a better kid or whatever. So all these things is what I want really to let it clear. And I mean, if at the end you want to call it birth control, then okay, let's call it. But I want them to be like the biggest decision that we can have as humans, the biggest act that we can do as biological, as human beings, as human units. We cannot let this decision be like the way we are doing it now. For me, this is not working. For me, this is a and 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 yeah, that's why for me it's not the decision to say, okay, if you cannot afford education, you should not have kids, because that would be like going more into some elitism and so on. So for me, the island, because I have the opportunity to create the island, to be the founding father of the island, I would be sure that we have a very nice education system, a very nice health system, a very nice let's say welfare state. So we stop talking about it. But then you know that even if you have like 10 million euros in your bank account, some things are going to be easier, but you're still going to face a lot of problems while raising your kids. It's not like and that's why for me it's very easy to say, hey, no, it's nothing related to income, because the challenges that you're going to face while raising one, two, three, or how many kids you want to have, it's this is not a thing that you're gonna solve with money. And being a good father doesn't mean to be a millionaire, right? And or being
I
a
hope
bad
not.
father. Yeah.
That would exclude me. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, yeah, like wrapping it up, it's for me it's more about, hey, do you want to have kids? Congratulations. I love the idea, because we need kids. I love them, and I just want you to be prepared. So give me the opportunity to give you some information, so you know what you're gonna face after your kids are here in the world. And maybe the only thing that I'm gonna, I don't know, achieve is that you can say, okay, maybe I can wait, or maybe, or you go there without being naive. You know, you get with a more clear image.
Mm.
and and yeah, I think we have to be more responsible with our children, with the next generations, and yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What we always do at the end of one of our sessions is basically decide whether or not mutually we would put this into a kind of the joint island governing system. Now, for me, it's a bit specific. It's almost like an individual law which has been drawn up to sort of prepare a legal, as it were, framework to manage a specific problem. How about we kind of expand it a little bit, keeping obviously the vasectomy element of it, but that when and maybe do it in that an educational system should be thorough enough to prepare all inhabitants of the island for all the decisions that they may be faced with foreseeably, that could impact upon the general well-being of society, and that there should be a universal educational system which everybody has to go through, and that would include also these kinds of medical procedures. Is that a possibility?
Yeah, sounds great. I mean, I mentioned it, that would be for me also a possibility to offer this kind of education and information even during high school, or yeah. I mean, I think we can do a lot with education, but not the kind of education that we are having now. I'm very happy if you know when the French Revolution was, but that's not the thing that's going to change the world, right? So
It already
I
has. It already has, man.
and yeah, okay, yeah, I know. Okay, I'm not gonna start with the all this
No, we,
Euro,
we,
Euro, Eurocentric mindset,
no, no,
but
no, no.
no, no, I was
Okay,
joking. I was joking.
we
I was joking.
we still need to have that talk, by the way. But that's not
Yeah,
what I meant when I say it's already changed the world. That's not what I was referring to. But yeah, but
yeah,
you're right. But you are right. Even I have to accept that I have a Eurocentric mindset, and I have to change that. But yeah, you're part of the process, man, of educating me.
yeah. No, no, no. But no, I think we're just learning together in a very nice way. And no, I think it was the first or the second episode we we record about this island project. It's the same about having the right to vote. It's like, hey, I'm only encouraging people to go through some courses so that they know what they are doing when they are voting. And here is very similar. So and here is, but for sure not at the same level, because when I was talking about voting, I was really that you have to earn the right. And here you have the right. You can have it, but I want you to be informed.
Yeah,
For you, it's not for me. It's for you,
sure.
and just taking care of the next generations.
Yeah, but in which case we're talking about you and us and everyone. So therefore, it still comes back to society and how individuals can blossom within society and how society can be further benefited by paying attention to individual needs. And of course, coming back to a point which you raised before, which I've reflected on repeatedly, human dignity, that
Yeah,
in itself, in your opinion, the dignity of every human individual perhaps has a greater importance than democracy.
sure.
Yeah, but we can consider that again later on. Yeah, Vlad, I tell you, wow, what a comeback, man. I love the fact that you throw these, I would say out of left field topics at me. I had not considered this at all. And then to sort of, elevate things in the conversational style that we've done here is brilliant. Yeah, man, I'm looking forward to the next one. Let's make sure it's not like 2 or 3 months away from where we were last time. So let's make sure that we try to talk again soon, because we still got a couple more points to cover, I think.
Yeah, Zach. So thank you very much. It was, as always, a pleasure to be here to talk to you, and learning quite a lot of things. So thanks for challenging me and for putting all these ideas like into maybe Vlad is crazy, so let's challenge him.
Maybe Vlad is, but who knows? Yeah.
Yeah, I am. Yeah. So it was a pleasure. Thank you very much. Have a great day,
Two
and we
and
will
a
see us
mic.
soon.
Two and a mic.